What's up everyone, welcome to the stream. My name is David Sinairo, and today we're playing Dear Esther, which I've heard so much about, and I have no idea how it plays, what it's about. I heard a lot, but in terms of, oh, is this an actual game? I'm sorry for what you were about to experience. Is it really that bad? I was hesitant between this and Ratchet and Clank 1. Possibly the worst walking sim I've ever played. It's also the first, right? Pretty much. We have inspired a genre, but it doesn't hold up. Okay. Well, I still want to give it a shot, but yeah. I have my guide. I'm going to try to go for all the trophies. Because you said you didn't like it, I thought, then maybe, just maybe, I want to do it right from the start. So if I love it, I can replay it anytime. If I don't have to. Right? I mean, according to the guide, you do have to replay it with director's commentary, but you know what I mean. Let's do it. How was your Sunday, Throw?
Dear Esther, I've lost track of how long I've been here and how many visits I have made overall. Certainly the landmarks are now so familiar to me that I have to remind myself to actually see the forms and shapes in front of me. I could stumble blind across these rocks, the edges of these precipices, without fear of missing my step and plummeting down to sea. Besides, I've always considered that if one is to fall, it is critical to keep one's eyes firmly open.
After this Enrapture, I will likely never play another Chinese room game. Absolutely terrible games experience. Way to spend an afternoon. Okay. Pretty good. Got caught up on a couple of cool VR games this morning and then just finished the movie. About to start Final Fantasy 7 Wild Ark. I don't know if you answered me more, but sorry I bothered you about Parappa. You did, okay. But like it's inconsistent from one song to the next. It's just so bad. Do you watch Bring It On 2 or Nothing? What? Was that the movie? I don't even know what that is. I died it. Did I die?
Come back.
Watched Extraction, new Netflix store movie. Ah, with Chris Hemsworth, yeah. James Wick. Yeah, I guess the problem with these games is how slow you move. Okay, so from the start of the game, walk up to the mountain path and stay to the right of mountain's walls. You will eventually get close to a cave entrance, near which you will trigger the voice. So there's nothing in here? Has some of the most amazing camera work I've ever seen. There were shots in there I've never seen before. Wow, now I gotta watch it. Just for that. Poop. I'm sure it has tons of clever edits and camera tricks. They did a damn fine job making long segments of it seem like one long take, and the camera guy appeared to be doing stunts along with the actors. Awesome. Have you seen? Well, there's always camera tricks. Remember Birdman? The entire movie is one shot. Obviously, that's not the case, right? Walk up the mountain path and stay to the right of the mountain's walls. Wasn't a fan of Bernie. Whole movie, all I could smell was overpowering pretentiousness. Oh no, I'm not saying Birdman's good.
Donnelly reported the legend of the hermit, a holy man who sought solitude in its most pure form. Allegedly, he rode here from the mainland in a boat without a bottom, so all the creatures of the sea could rise at night to converse with him. How disappointed he must have been with their chatter. Perhaps now, when all that haunts the ocean is the rubbish dumped from the tankers, he'd find more peace. They say he threw his arms wide in a valley on the south side, and the cliff opened up to provide him shelter. They say he died of fever 116 years later. The shepherds left gifts for him at the mouth of the cave, but Donnelly records they never claimed to have seen him. I have visited the cave and I have left my gifts, but like them, I appear to be an unworthy subject of his solitude.
But you told me you like it at one point. It must have been someone else. I don't dislike it, but it's not a movie I would ever recommend. It's a movie I don't regret watching as someone who likes cinema, but I think it's more of a, hey, this is neat, and like, look at what they did technically, but the movie itself, the point of the movie, which is telling a story or making you feel something, that's a little lost, or very lost. I think the form is pretty neat. The function, if you will, who cares? But as someone who studied film, I think it's like, for film school, I almost think it's a must watch, right? But then again, so are a lot of other films that aren't exactly good movies. Hey, this is a great movie. You need to watch it. Someone who study enjoyment, definite skip. Yeah, I get it. There's a movie I studied at film school, which is called The Piano. The Piano, not the pianist. I was so bored watching that movie, and it's great as as something to study, like looking at all the subtext, how to create subtext in your images. Amazing movie. As an actual piece of entertainment, wow, boring. Sounds familiar? It's Harvey Keitel, if I don't misremember. It's a mute girl that only expresses herself through the piano. That's what I thought. Wow, I'm amazed you you know that film. Harvey takes out the whole sausage. That one, he does. Yes. That's why my teacher wanted to study. No, it's not. It's not. Walk off the cliff towards the left and stay to the left of the beach's shorelines. Walk off the cliff? I'm cultured. Okay. Wow, that laugh was too loud. It sounds more sarcastic than it was meant to be. As you get closer to the rocks at the end of this beach, you will trigger the voice. Then it was meant to be. Yeah, it was meant to be a little sarcastic. Not that much.
At night, you can see the lights sometimes from a passing tanker or trawler. From up on the cliffs, they are mundane. But down here, they fugue into ambiguity. For instance, I cannot readily tell if they belong above or below the waves. The distinction now seems banal. Why not everything and all at once? There's nothing better to do here than indulge in contradictions whilst waiting for the fabric of life to unravel.
What happened to Arrow? He was here 1 second, then gone. I don't know. He's probably fishing. When in doubt, he's fishing. Oh, throw. You should see the throw. Are you familiar with the booty emote that we have on FFZ? Don't use FFC? Yeah, but you could have seen it before. TOS breach incoming. No, I'm just linking to shit. To FFZ. It's allowed by Twitch. They work together. So Tro, this is what we use right now on this channel. If you remember, there was a conversation a while back where I actually submitted this emote and it got turned down by Twitch. I don't know why I'm surprised. Dude, I'm about to show you one I found that is so worse. Exactly. Jesus Christ, indeed. Can feel the wee boner poking through the stream. No. I just wanted to show it to you, so you have one. You can feel yours. From the above, move towards the right, walking past the mountain rocks. Afterwards, stick to the left of the rocky path. As you continue walking towards the canyon, the voice will trigger. Got like 6 no on that, of course. The more wrong you are, the more no-nos you get. For example, if you say, David, you must be an amazing soccer player. I will give you a no, which is kind of like a bike starting. What is this? Stick to the left of the rocky path. There's no path. This?
I have found the ship's manifest, crumpled and waterlogged under a stash of paint cans. It tells me that along with this present cargo, there was a large quantity of antacid yogurt bound for the European market. It must have washed out to sea. God knows there are no longer gulls or goats here to eat it.
It's like the worse your opinion, the more now gets attached. What the fuck is this game narrating about? You don't know and you beat it? Do you not know what the game is about? The devs don't know? Okay. You played the developed commentary too, right? It's pointless drivel that goes nowhere. So, what you're saying is, this is what actual masturbation is like. Weeb walking sim? I don't think there's a weeb walking sim, is there? By the way, I think I managed to revive my my US account. So it would be amazing if you guys told me when there's a sale on the house in Fata Morgana. Even close, I get relief out of that. This one gives me frustration, it's more like blue balls. No, I mean, it's masturbation on the part of the developers. Ooh, I want to be so artsy fartsy. Ah. See some stairs? Walk up these stairs and turn around and walk up the mountain path to the left. Endless masturbatory pretentious bullshit. Yeah, that's what I mean with masturbation. Masturbation from the developers. Look up the mountain path, left the stairs you just climbed. The voice will trigger in the middle of the path. Okay. How did I even get here?
Reading Donnelly by the weak afternoon sunlight. He landed on the south side of the island, followed the path to the bay and climbed the mount. He did not find the caves, and he did not chart the north side. I think this is why his understanding of the island is flawed, incomplete. He stood on the mount and only wondered momentarily how to descend. But then, he didn't have my reasons.
Ask myself the same thing every day. I believe that's what you'd call wankery. Yes, it is. After getting number 5's voice, keep walking forward and the music tone will change as it's followed by the voice triggering. Okay. So not to look for this kind of games I already own? Well, I could try to get it if you look it up. Do you have a wish list? And how are you doing, Melty and Great Panther?
When someone had died or was dying, or was so ill they gave up what little hope they could sacrifice, they cut parallel lines into the cliff, exposing the white chalk beneath. You could see them from the mainland or the fishing boats, and know to send aid or impose a cordon of protection, and wait a generation until whatever pestilence stalked the cliff paths died along with its hosts. My lines are just for this, to keep any would-be rescuers at bay. The infection is not simply of the flesh.
What? Someone is dying, you carved that into the cliff? How many people... So only 2 people have died? Ever? How do you even carve that? Good job deciphering this garbage game. I don't understand, what is this? How do you even make that humanly? So, I've had the Parappa driving test song in my head for 3 days, so there's that. Do you know why we stopped the car? I apologize. But hey, Hellblade was amazing. We need a hit, a miss, a hit, a miss. Well, the path you're on, and you'll see some flowers on the big stone pillar. It almost looks like a finger. Ah, this game is giving you the finger too? Walk up to the stone pillar, trigger the voice. This? I've heard very, very, very mixed stuff about Tokyo Dark.
We are not like Lot's wife, you and I. We feel no particular need to turn back. There's nothing to be seen if we did. No tired old man parting the cliffs with his arms. No gifts or Bibles laid out on the sand for the taking. No tides turning or the shrieking gulls overhead. The bones of the hermit are no longer laid out for the taking. I have stolen them away to the guts of this island, where the passages all run to black, and where we can light each other's faces by their strange luminescence.
Follow the path down the hill as you continue towards the cave. How far are you from beating Remake, though?
Dear Esther, I met Paul. I made my own little pilgrimage. My Damascus, a small semi-detached on the outskirts of Wolverhampton. We drank coffee in his kitchen and tried to connect to one another. Although he knew I hadn't come in search of an apology, reason or retribution, he still spiraled in panic, thrown high and lucid by his own dented bonnet. Responsibility had made him old. Like us, he'd already passed beyond any conceivable boundary of life.
Two-thirds, okay. Still enjoying it as much as you were?
I've become convinced I'm not alone here, even though I'm equally sure it is simply a delusion brought upon by circumstance. I do not, for instance, remember where I found the candles, or why I took it upon myself to light such a strange pathway. Perhaps it is only for those who are bound to follow.
Still reliving it, taking it slow, which I don't do often. I got a free week of Final Fantasy XIV. I don't know when I'd play it. How free? How free? You need to have logged in for the last time more than a month ago, which I still haven't. It's only on the 1st. And then I have 8 entire days. Root letter is $9. to the right of the pillar stones in the grassy area. The fuck? Stop, turn, and circle to the right. You expect me to find this? Without a guide? The worst VN you've ever finished, damn. I was playing more Parappa today. So I managed to do super cool on the first stage. Can't get the cool on the second stage for the life of me. I got it on stream for the third one. Can't pass the fourth. Just, wow. If you're into visual novels and curious, then go somewhere else first. Root letter, last answer. Oh, last answer is the worst part, the worst version too, I think. Put you off the genre for life. If you're a visual novel fan, you've played all the other interesting ones on the Switch. Absolutely cannot wait for another. If you encountered maybe just going outside or watching TV or lying on the floor and staring at the ceiling and still can't wait for another, then you could take a look at Root Ladder. Great. But I think Last Answer is live action, isn't that the case? Yeah, I think the normal Root Ladder is not live action, and the other one is.
This seer, this distant historian of bones and old bread, where did he vanish to? Why, asked the farmers. Why, asked Jakobsen. Why bother with your visions at all, if you're just to throw your arms up at the cliff and let it close in behind you and seal you into the belly of the island, a museum shut to all but the most devoted?
Yeah. I feel like these drawings were made from the... That's a little visual. From the sperm of the developers just masturbating for this game. Hey, Root Ladder's off the list. What did you play Kotodama Melting? There's also World End Syndrome, which I hear is pretty good. if you're looking for VNs. One's on the back burner. Did you ever finish Zenki Zero Throw? Haven't started yet. That's the plan for after 7. Might squeeze another Yakuza between Final Fantasy 7 and Zonky. Okay. So I think I got all 10 story beats. I need to do this for Everybody's Gone to the Rapture too, huh? Is there really a visual novel named The World End Economics? Never heard of it. But maybe?
Dear Esther, I have now driven the stretch of the M5 between Exeter and Bristol over 21 times. But although I have all the reports and all the witnesses, and have cross-referenced them within a millimetre using my Ordnance Survey maps, I simply cannot find the location. You'd think there would be marks to serve as some evidence. It's somewhere between the turn-off for Sanford and the welcome brake services, but although I can always see it in my rear-view mirror, I have as yet been unable to pull ashore.
There's also one called My World Is Ended, which I also have been looking into. That one and Kotodama. But Throw, if you want a visual novel, you should absolutely go with Neko Para. Or Punchline. To start this chapter, hug the left mountain walls and keep walking forward alongside it until the voice triggers. Yeah, I actually hear the story of Punchline is pretty good. The weep factor's pretty high. I know.
I've begun to wonder if Donnelly's voyage here was as prosaic as it was presented. How disappointed not to have found the bones of the holy man. No wonder he hated the inhabitants so. To him they must have seemed like barnacles mindlessly clinging to a mercy seat. Why cling so hard to the rock? Because it is the only thing that stops us from sliding into the ocean. Into oblivion.
I feel like even Esther doesn't particularly care what happens here. Yes. I think you're pretty right, Great Vancer. Idea that root letter will be on top of any VN list. I have the original root letter, so one day I'll probably actually play it. These are the weeb novels that I've made into my list at one point or another. List of stuff I'll probably never play. I honestly no idea if any of them are any good. Tokyo Dark Raging Loop, Tokyo Chronos, Steins Gate. Ah, Shibuya Scramble. That's pretty weeb, but it's live action too. No, throw. Have you heard of Death Mark? Death Mask? What is Tokyo Chronos? I don't know what that is. Tokyo Dark is not a visual novel. Ah, it's a VR visual novel. Looks like something you're gonna be looking at pantsu and shit. Maybe not. I guess not, according to looking at these images. Love the art style. Love the 2D art style, not the gameplay art style. So Death Mask is pretty... let me just confirm if that's the name. It's Death Mark, isn't it? Yeah, Death Mark. Mark. It's pretty well known, and there's a new sequel. Do you think I would put something on my list where the screenshots hint at that we've shit? I guess not. Look up Death Mark. See if it tickles your fancy. It's probably the least weeb of all those options. The art style is very Western, I think. Looks as weeb as Bloodborne. Bloodborne is kind of weeb sometimes. I mean, the character writing in the Souls games is pretty weeb. It is a Japanese game after all. I think I've looked at reviews for this game. It leaned too much into horror territory, which I'm not sure in a weeb novel. I think Japanese horror is the best kind of horror. Silent Hill, Fatal Frame, Siren. So, yeah. That is something that would make me want to play it. After getting the above voice, walk all the way down to the bottom near the wreck boats. Keep going until you're on the right side of the mountain and follow the path towards the ocean near the rocks. Wait. I need to see where the next... Think Japanese? Wow. No. Dude, horror games... Japanese horror is... is absolutely superior. I think that's the one area where basically everyone agrees in terms of horror. Snow Kitsune, thank you for the host. How are you doing? How was your stream? Japanese horror falls into the anime context? Not always. The live action horror movies, Japanese horror, is really, really awesome. You have to go psychological thriller, which I love. That's the kind of stuff I love in a horror. I don't want the jump scares, I want to feel the dread. Hello Kitsune, how was your stream? Can we get a shout out, guys? Actually, it was fun streaming with webcam. They're so nice. Cool. Were you no cam fam before? League, how did that go? How's my stream going? Well, we're not caring about the game because it's apparently some masturbatory exercise from some developers. But now I'm committed, so I wanna get it done. Not a fan of the game, I think. Maybe I'm not giving it a chance because Chan already deemed it as pretty bad. Hear a lot of Korean horror is the best, but of course you have earmuffs for everything but Japanese. No throw, I actually hear South Korean horror is amazing too, yes. So no kappa there. Had fun in League and this is rare. What else do you play? Just talking about all-American choose-your-own-adventure games. You know, the walking simulator is the visual novel of the West. Clearly the worst of the option. Keep going till you're on the right side of the mountain and follow the path towards the ocean near the rocks. Valorant and Overwatch. You only stream cool kid stuff. I don't play anything the cool kids play. I'm not cool. I try really hard not to be cool and I succeed amazingly at it. I watch you play it, not sure it's something I want to invest time in when there's so much else. I get it. Did you look up Kotodama or World's End Syndrome?
There must be a hole in the bottom of the boat. How else could new hermits have arrived?
Or my world is ended. But out of all these games, probably... But Raging Loop is pretty horror too, isn't it? At least what I saw of Raging Loop, I thought it was kind of like a horror game in some regards. Those both sound familiar. I'm sure I looked them up in the past. There's probably something in the trailer that set off my Wii red flags. We could play a lot of fun games too. I try to play random stuff. sometimes not that fun. It's a horror? Turn around, hug the left wall of this mountain. As you walk forward, there should be some red-pink flowers to the left of the wall where the voice triggers. Would fail as an anime? Like Corpse Party?
I had kidney stones and you visited me in the hospital. After the operation, when I was still half submerged in anesthetic, your outline and your speech both blurred. Now my stones have grown into an island and made their escape, and you have been rendered opaque by the car of a drunk.
Did we just have an analogy about kidney stones becoming an island? "11 out of 10 plot narration. So deep I don't get it." Yeah. This reminds me of the worst book I ever read for school, which is Apparition, I guess. By a Portuguese author. It was so filled with mental masturbation. I just laughed all the way through the book. What is it about the Tuna Wars? No. It was about absolutely nothing. Which apparently this is too. Follow the path forward and you'll find a sinkhole. The voice will trigger near the edge of the sinkhole. You can also walk into the sinkhole for the trophy for dying. Cool. What is the path forward? This is the sinkhole. And they all learn I have a good taste, David. Till that time, you get to experience all my past mistakes. I think you have good taste, though.
Is this what Paul saw through his windscreen? Not Lot's wife looking over her shoulder, but a scar in the hillside, falling away to black forever.
The difference is, I probably like everything you like, and my taste is broader.
Come back.
Less refined? Maybe. Gonna go sleep or rest. Good stream. Have a good night, Kitsune. Thank you for the host and stopping by. Let me check if I followed you. I didn't. My bad. There, it's done. My bad indeed. What might be the most hilarious thing you've ever said, David? Because I love other stuff that you don't love, but that I might love more than the stuff you do. Love that the game rewards you for purposefully trying to end it all. Yeah! Yeah. One of the widest interest in games of anyone I know. Play literally every type of game. But with one qualification, if standards is melting implied. Maybe. Up the hill from the sinkhole, the tone of the music will start to change before the voice triggers. Okay.
I've begun my ascent on the green slope of the western side. I've looked deep into the mountain from the shaft and understood that I must go up and then find the way under. I will stash the last vestiges of my civilization in the stone walls and work deeper from there. I'm drawn by the aerial and the cliff edge. There is some form of rebirth waiting for me there.
Man, I really gotta remember this game for when I'm having insomnia. The next voice is on the left side of the path toward the house that you can see at the top of the hill. Instead of going towards that house, stay on the left side of the hill, then walk towards the house at the top of the hill. You will trigger the voice as you walk closer toward the house. Talking about past mistakes and you reliving mine, would you like my ex-wife's number? Nah. I'm sure I've performed some of those mistakes too. Just not the marriage type. Fortunately.
The bothy was constructed originally in the early 1700s. By then, shepherding had formalized into a career. The first habitual shepherd was a man called Jakobsen, from a lineage of migratory Scandinavians. He was not considered a man of breeding by the mainlanders. He came here every summer whilst building the bothy, hoping eventually that becoming a man of property would secure him a wife and a lineage. Donnelly records that it did not work. He caught some disease from his malcontented goats and died 2 years after completing it. There was no one to carve white lines into the cliff for him either.
What? Was he fucking the goats? How old am I? 31? Why do you fuck a goat on the edge of a cliff? What? The narration said he caught a disease from one of his malcontented goats. How do you catch a disease from a goat? But yeah, I'm 31. Walk inside the house and the voice will trigger. I wonder. You wonder what? If you want to play through Truth or Dare, you have to use the points. It was a very virile 6-year-old, I suppose it's possible. Ah.
3 cormorants seen at dusk. They did not land. This house built of stone, built by a long-dead shepherd. Contents: my camp bed, a stove, a table, chairs, my clothes, my books. The caves that score out the belly of this island, leaving it famished. My limbs and belly famished. This skin, these organs, this failing eyesight. When the battery runs out in my torch, I will descend into the caves and follow only the phosphorescence home.
Wow. This is a different kind of woke. I thought you wanted to ask stuff about my past relationships. My bad. You were just wondering if you could be a father. I was 1 year into gaming in ES Mario when David was born. Were you not, Grasshopper? I shall teach you. Yeah, the one thing I notice, I think the biggest difference, seriously, the biggest difference between our tastes in video games is you love mechanics. And I am much more into story above everything else. Like, a platformer without a story won't do as much for me, while you love Mario, for example. I'm as much into story as you, also like mechanics, once again showing a wider interests. That's what I'm saying. Like, that's what I'm saying. I just said you love mechanics, and I love mechanics in games I already love because of the story, right? But if it's just mechanics, I have a really hard time liking a game just for the gameplay. It happens, but usually I need another hook. I've never seen you interact with a mechanic. Yes, you have. Sydney in Final Fantasy 15. I love you wherever you are, Sydney. Exit the house and keep walking down the hill behind the house. Okay. The mindset though, I was into exploit certain mechanics like easy mode. But that's the thing. I'm never looking for a challenge. Sometimes I bump it up, right? But usually I'm playing more for story. So wow. So I don't care about normal or hard or whatever. I want to play the story. So easy mode is fine. Thank you for the bits, Tro. Why do I come here? Why do I interact? Why do I set myself up? Constant disappointment, frustration, heartburn, and Ashita. Are you the way you are? I love you too, Tro. But no, let's not go into my past romps. Keep walking down the hill behind the house. Okay. Love you too, fucker. Thank you.
He left his body to the medical school and was duly
I was
opened
just
out
about
for
to
a
start
crowd of
talking.
students 21 days after his passing. The report is included in my edition of his book. The syphilis had torn through his guts like a drunk driver, scrambling his organs like eggs on a plate. But enough definition remained for a cursory examination, and, as I suspected, they found clear evidence of kidney stones. He's likely to have spent the last years of his life in considerable pain. Perhaps this is the root of his laudanum habit. Although its use makes him an unreliable witness, I find myself increasingly drawn into his orbit.
What the actual fuck? Is there a Japanese dub of this game? No. Might actually prefer it for this game. Yeah, at least you don't understand what the fuck what is the shit they're talking about here. Or you can say, I didn't get it because it was the language barrier. Keep walking down the hill, which is now stone stairs. As you're walking, the music tone will change and the voice will trigger at the bottom of these stairs. What? I was saying something, I forgot. This game talked about the unreliable narrator or whatever, and I got reminded of something. So I looked up the thing in Hellblade with the curse consuming you, right? Apparently, the point of that is to make you think that if you fail too much, they will delete your progress and you will fail like for good, permadeath. It's a case of unreliable narration, and it's a way for the game mechanics to actually instill paranoia on you and fear of failure on you. But it never happens.
They found Jakobsen in early spring. The thaw had only just come. Even though he'd been dead nearly 7 months, his body had been frozen right down to the nerves and had not even begun to decompose. He'd struggled halfway down the cliff path, perhaps looking for some lost goat, or perhaps in a delirium, and expired, curled into a claw right under the winter moon. Even the animals shunned his corpse. The mainlanders thought to bring it home unlucky. Donnelly claims they dragged it to the caves to thaw out and rot, but he is proving an unreliable witness.
Dev came up with that after the fact, once it blew up into a controversy. The first statement said it was a mistake and left it, an accident or something. It was an old artifact of a real permadeath mode. What I looked up didn't say that, but okay. What are these ashes? Definitely an excuse. Thank God this genre has evolved into Edith Finch. Oh man. Edith Finch was so good. That game was really special. Right now, all I wish is that Esther Finch would fall off a cliff and die so this game can end. Yeah. The game really emphasizes it every time you die. They might have gotten away with it if they didn't put it in text. I don't know. I felt... when I read that, I felt like it was a good... I didn't feel like it was an excuse. I felt, oh, this is a really clever way to instill that fear and paranoia on you, even if the game never is evil enough to go through with it. But yeah, maybe they actually intended to do it first.
Climbing down to the caves, I slipped and fell and have injured my leg. I think the femur is broken. It is clearly infected. The skin has turned a bright, tight pink, and the pain is crashing in on waves, winter tides against my shoreline, drowning out the ache of my stones. I struggled back to the bothy to rest, but it has become clear that there is only one way this is likely to end. The medical supplies I looted from the trawler have suddenly found their purpose. They will keep me lucid for my final ascent.
The game tells the player not to send one. Yeah, it's the only time the game actually writes something for you. I think it's the only written thing in the game, other than subtitles. But yeah, like, I mean, Senwa talks to you too, so I didn't doubt it, but you're probably right. You probably looked it up before all the excuses even happened, because you must have played it at launch, right? Man, I kept thinking about that game today. I can't... At least I am happy that these games launch on PC too, and I hope my PC will run Senua too. Hello, Echo.
Donnelly did not pass through the caves. From here on in, his guidance, unreliable as it is gone from me. I understand now that it is between the two of us, and whatever correspondence can be drawn from the wet rocks.
When I looked up the trophy guides on release day, they were all warning of permadeath, and within hours rumors started coming out, and then the dev made a mistake comment. Can't remember exactly what it was. Okay. But damn, that game felt so special. Midway through the caves, you'll find the first bridge that you can cross. Okay. At the start of the chapter, and then from the start of the chapter, keep walking forward to the green tunnel until you enter a room with a candle in the center. Walk towards this candle and the voice will trigger. Of the game regardless, didn't really have an impact on my enjoyment, though I remember Sterling giving out like 1 out of 10 or something. Yeah, cause he got stuck on something, like he got a checkpoint, a bad checkpoint that prevented him from continuing. I would have to go watch that video, I don't remember. I might have not even watched it, I think. I think he pulled it down and replaced it the next day.
It was as if someone had taken the car and shaken it like a cocktail. The glove compartment had been opened and emptied with the ashtrays and the boot. It made for a crumpled museum, a shattered exhibition.
He pulled it down and replaced it, saying he was too rash in his anger. Maybe. I think he ended up giving it like a 7 out of 10. Which is the only ever review that he gives out. But yeah. just like I'm super sad I can't have Ori and the Blind Forest and the sequel on PS4. Senua 2 is going to be hard not to get. Those are absolutely the best games on Forza Box. Turn around and walk through the blue tunnel. You'll see a waterfall at the end of this tunnel. Yes. Walk off the cliff to land in the water and then walk out of the water. Haven't listened to Sterling in like a year. Snap one day, couldn't take any more of his screeching. I still listen to him. Although, I skipped the last things because they talked about Final Fantasy VII Remake. By the way, where do you see Troy left Retro Replay? Because I went looking for it. I saw a bunch of stuff of Nolan talking about it, but nothing of Troy. Continue following the path up the hill of the cave and stick to the left walls of the cave. I went in a bunch of places to look for any statement from him as to why, but there was nothing. Video from Nolan popped up on my feed. Haven't heard anything from Troy. Really? That's disrespectful as fuck? Think he announced a new show just yesterday? Wow. Do I not care about that, huh? You need to enter a red tunnel cave, and at the end of it will be a room with a bridge. A red? I mean, probably could have said something to the people who have stuck with him for ages. He's an amazing actor. What is it? Randomly sound like a year. There's some darkness there. Be shocked if something comes out at some point about him. Yeah, but you wouldn't be shocked about that about me either. What?
Traversing my own death throes.
David snapped and killed a bunch of people?
An oil rig that dredges black muck up from deep inside my bones. I swallow fistfuls of diazepam and paracetamol to stay conscious. The pain flows through me like an underground sea.
I'm expecting it from you. I'd be shocked if it doesn't happen. So this is this stream is actually a suicide watch. No, a murder suicide watch. Cross this ridge and then hug the wall in front of you as you make your way towards the right area of this wall to find the urn. Let me watch the video. Wow, this video is slower than I am. A failed bullet catch. Nah. That's not the kind of stuff people expect from me. Cross the bridge, walk up to the cliff, reach on the left path. You enter a white diamond-like tunnel. Yeah, I wonder if Nolan is going to do it alone or if he's going to bring someone in. His new show is on Instagram Live. What? Let's get into it. Wow, this is the worst teaser ever. What is it? The annoying thing that I clicked to get rid of the notification. Yeah. Oh, so it's just him talking about random topics? Why not do both things? Especially if you're going on Instagram Live. Wow. Hey Cyan, how are you? Love them playing Uncharted and Last of Us. This, thanks but no thanks. You bet. Hey, at least we got that Last of Us Ultimate playthrough, right? And Nolan can still do it. Hope you get Final Fantasy VII Remake tomorrow. A lot of walking simulators, so hit and miss. Yeah, this one is definitely a miss. Make a right and the voice will trigger and at the end of this tunnel.
This cannot be the shaft they threw the goats into. It cannot be the landfill where the parts of your life that would not burn ended up. It cannot be the chimney that delivered you to the skies. It cannot be the place where you rained back down again to fertilize the soil and make small flowers in the rocks.
It's not looking good. I wrote the seller. They were clueless. Oh man. So I don't have to worry about doing a short game? Is that what you're saying? For tomorrow? Because I obviously chose this because it was going to be... desculpas, já deveria ter recebido a semana. Vamos contar a empresa de transportes se está a passar. Obrigado. Wow, okay. So, do they have tracking? Wow, they answered you in Portuguese? Why the hell did they answer you in Portuguese? Did you contact them in Portuguese? No English? What? That's like the worst thing you could do. That has never happened to me. Like, I bought tons of stuff from China for photo shoots, dresses, wigs, whatever, just accessories. Never have I been written back in Chinese or whatever. Even if it's rudimentary English, people make an effort. It's so easy to just Google Translate. That's seriously rude. I apologize for my people. Amazon sent me an email asking me to rate my purchase. Yeah. Don't forget to give the bad rating after. I mean, come on. You're selling on Amazon UK, you can't even speak English? What the hell is this? At least British. Rude. I'm Portuguese and I'd be pretty mad about it if they answered in Portuguese. Americans know them, UK fellows speak that fancy Englandish. Esther. This doesn't even have a platinum. God damn it. But yeah, this was the first walking simulator, Cyan, and fortunately the genre has evolved. Code Vein was delivered to my parents' house today. Nice, 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 nice. From the start of the chapter, head to the left wall of the cave, and as you reach the exit where you see the moon ahead of you, the tone of the music will change and the voice will trigger.
The moon over the Sanford Junction, headlights in your retinas. Donnelly drove a grey hatchback without a bottom. All the creatures of the tarmac rose to sing to him. All manner of symbols crudely scrawled across the cliff face of my unrest. My life reduced to an electrical diagram. All my gulls have taken flight. They will no longer roost on these outcrops. The lure of the moon over the Sanford Junction is too strong.
Okay. Walk over towards the right side of the area and follow the path down to the beach. Fuck the games industry and the children that work in it. Disgruntled Naughty Dog employee leaked a bunch of cutscenes and gameplay from the beginning of Last of Us 2, footage that includes a major spoiler. I saw spoilers were out. I think Dreamcast guy made a video about it. Like, hey, spoilers are out. So, if you're interested, make sure to stay away from these places. Will eventually be candles leading you towards the path, and the voice will trigger as you get close to them. Not these candles? Have an issue with the company? Fine, I get it. But to ruin it for millions of people that did nothing to you? Fuck this person and everything they think they stand for? Yeah. Even the... I know it might sound insensitive, but even all the stuff with the grind, it's not the grind, the...
Fire and soil,
shit.
I chose fire. It seemed the more contemporary of the options.
What's it called?
The more sanitary. I could not bear the thought of the reassembly of such a ruins. Stitching arm to shoulder and femur to hip, charting a line of thread like traffic stilled on a motorway, making it all acceptable for tearful aunts and traumatized uncles flown in specially for the occasion. Reduce to ash, mix with water, make a phosphorescent paint for these rocks and ceilings.
Even the crunch stuff. By now, everyone does it, and you know it's gonna happen. It's your industry. It's like a fire department guy saying, or a doctor saying he doesn't want to work 24-hour shifts. Yeah, that sucks. That's how doctors do it. It's much worse than a video game developer doing crunch. It's much worse on your body, and it's much worse for the patient after when you're at the 23rd hour of a shift. You're like 120% more likely to make a mistake. So, forgive me if I'm a little insensitive to your crunch stories by now. Are there abuses? Sure, but not as widespread, not as bad as these children make it out to be. Worked in development for decades, been in crunch, never seen anything approaching 90% of what they report. I feel like a lot of times you're being a baby, And then video game journalists obviously blow it out of proportion because that's what they do. And then we become desensitized because everyone and their mother is reporting bad stories of crunch and bad industry standards and whatever, that when something actually bad happens, you're already desensitized to it. What? Okay. So it's over here. Yep, trophy. Leaking a chunk of The Last of Us 2, man. Yeah. I hope they know who it was. And this guy, one, never works in the industry again, but two, what a lawsuit. What a fucking lawsuit you're gonna get if they know who you are. You should pass 2 empty caves. This is not empty. Follow the candles and you should pass 2 empty caves. It's this new progressive mindset of automatically believing anything someone says if they're part of a particular group. Been on the receiving end of a disgruntled employee. Dude got fired and sued me saying I allowed a racist culture. Guess what? One thing he claimed was true except for a single statement that he himself actually said and tried to pass off as coming from another employee. Wow. But, I mean, the onus of proof is on the accuser, but how do you prove any of this? What is the point sometimes of any of this except dragging someone through the mud? That's what I don't understand. Like, how can I prove you've said something in a conversation? I don't even understand many times what is the point of all of this. Exactly, it's nothing but vengeance. He was angry, he got fired. I really don't get the point. Been fired, I moved on like an adult. Yep. Has, it's the participation medal mindset, I guess. You deserve everything. If you don't get it, it's because people were mean to you. You deserve nothing and like it.
There were chemical stains on the tarmac, the leak of air conditioning, brake fluid and petrol. He kept sniffing at his fingers as he sat by the roadside, waiting as if he couldn't quite understand or recognize their smell. He said he'd been travelling back from a sales conference in Exeter. He'd stopped for farewell drinks earlier, but had kept a careful eye on his intake. You could hear the sirens above the idling traffic.
I really don't understand this game. From the above, follow the candles around the huge rock that you see on the left. This will eventually trigger the next voice. There are many huge rocks, but I see the candles.
From here, I can see my armada. I collected all the letters I'd ever meant to send to you, if I'd have ever made it to the mainland, but had instead collected at the bottom of my rucksack, and I spread them out along the lost beach. Then I took each and every one, and I folded them into boats. I folded you into the creases, and then, as the sun was setting, I set the fleet to sail. Shattered into 21 pieces, I consigned you to the Atlantic, and I sat here until I'd watched all of you sink.
Return back to the main path and go up the stairs to climb the mountain. After getting off the stairs, simply keep walking forward until the voice triggers. What the fuck is this game going on about? I don't even understand if this is a metaphor or if this is actually true. Or if it's like happening right now. Return back to the main path and go up the stairs to climb the mountain. What stairs to climb the mountain? Hello, Bambi. Welcome to the lamest game you'll see all year. Is this max movement speed? It's the only movement speed. It's max and minimum at the same time. Max Payne.
When Paul keeled over dead on the road to Damascus, they resuscitated him by hitting him in the chest with stones gathered by the roadside.
What?
He was lifeless for 21 minutes, certainly long enough for the oxygen levels in his brain to have decreased and caused hallucinations and delusions of transcendence. I'm running out of painkillers, and the moon has become almost unbearably bright.
You must have taken all the painkillers yourself. So, this guy is dying. Let's stone him. They complain about Death Stranding. I have nothing to say. That was that a person? Death Stranding was amazing. Keep walking forward, and you should start seeing some candles again. On the second candle that you walk closer to, the voice will trigger. How have you been, Bambi? Feel like I haven't talked to you in ages.
I've begun my voyage in a paper boat without a bottom. I will fly to the moon in it. I've been folded along a crease in time, a weakness in the sheet of life. Now you've settled on the opposite side of the paper to me. I can see your traces in the ink that soaks through the fiber, the pulped vegetation. When we become waterlogged and the cage disintegrates, we will intermingle. When this paper aeroplane leaves the cliff edge and carves parallel vapor trails in the dark, we will come together.
I actually miss playing it, even if it was just that. I miss playing it too. I wonder if my stuff is degraded to shit. Hug the left wall as you continue to follow the path in front of you to trigger the voice.
If only Donnelly had experienced this, he would have realized he was his own shoreline, as am I. Just as I am becoming this island, so he became his syphilis, retreating into the burning synapses, the stones, the infection.
Weird. I'm on layoff because of COVID. I'll start a TV production program hopefully soon. Oh, nice! I mean, not the layoff, but TV production is great, man. For what channel can I know? It's a school made by Plural Entertainment, you know them? Yeah. Some friends who worked for that. The models. I think I'm missing one of these. Oh man, really? It's here now, of course, considering it. Is it very expensive? Go to college to do translation? That's really not what I want to do for a living. Yeah, if you don't want to do it for a living, translation then why are you doing it? Why would you do it? Why would you go to college for it? What I mean. This is weird. Yeah, so I guess no internets until Last of Us is launched, which has no date.
There are headlights reflected in these retinas, too long in the tunnels of my island without a bottom. The sea creatures have risen to the surface, but the gulls are not here to carry them back to their nests. I've become fixed, open and staring, an eye turned on itself. I've become an infected leg whose tracking lines form a perfect map of the junctions of the M5. I will take the exit at mid-thigh and plummet to my Esther.
Wow. You know what the best part of this game is? It's the fact that I'm following a guide, so I'm not missing any story beats, and yet I still don't understand a thing that's happening. Start playing Final Fantasy VII Remake 5 hours in. How are you liking it? Fire is multimedia here in Lisbon. We only have one public university and a zone of visual scores. Fortunately, the acceptance score is way higher than mine. Next area that I'm good at is foreign language and his translation choice. Okay. What's the mark to get in? How much do you need?
He was not drunk, Esther. He was not drunk at all. He had not drunk with Donnelly or spat Jakobsen back at the sea. He had not careered across the lost shores and terminal beaches of this nascent archipelago. He did not intend his bonnet to be crumpled like a spent tissue by the impact. His windscreen was not star-studded all over like a map of the heavens. His paintwork etched with circuit diagrams, strange fish to call the gulls away.
The phosphorescence of the skid marks lighting the M5 all the way from Exeter to Damascus.
What a wonderful game indeed. 18 and some pre-requirements have to pay to apply to an interview. Is this for a normal degree or a master's? Spicy ramen? I'll take some too. I'm curious if there's an affection system of some sort in the remake. You wanna date Barrett in the gold saucer? They haven't said no to any of the girls, as you shouldn't.
We will leave twin vapor trails in the air.
Nice.
White lines etched into these rocks. Dear Esther, I have burnt my belongings, my books, this death certificate. Mine will be written all across this island. Who was Jakobsen? Who remembers him? Donnelly has written of him, but who was Donnelly? Who remembers him? I have painted, carved, hewn, scored into this space all that I could draw from him. There will be another to these shores to remember me. I will rise from the ocean like an island without bottom, come together like a stone, become an aerial, a beacon, that they will not forget you. We've always been drawn here. One day the gulls will return and nest in our bones and our history. I will look to my left and see Esther Donnelly flying beside me. I will look to my right and see Paul Jakobsen flying beside me. They will leave white lines carved into the air to reach the mainland, where help will be sent.
If you don't start flying like a seagull, that's a hell of a jump. Yeah, that's what I thought. Wow. Even the ending is predictable. Amazing. What the hell was this game? It's 3-year graduation. I presume they do this because they're the only public choice and a lot of people apply. With 18? My mark was 16 and... well... I got where I wanted. I got in where I wanted, but... Lisbon, I guess.
Come back.
This was bad. Yeah. Not very fun. Not fun at all. Okay. So now we have to do it all over again in director's commentary mode. Trophies for triggering all director's commentary of the game. You trigger these commentaries by simply walking through the piece of floating paper marked with the symbol. This trophy isn't missable due to there being a chapter select feature. If you did miss something, you need to try and guess what you've missed. They're usually out in the open and they lead you the path that you need to take to complete the chapter. However, there are a few commentaries that you might miss if you aren't checking places thoroughly. There are a total of 59 director's commentary, and following my written walkthrough below will give you all director's commentary in one playthrough. Okay. Fun. Wow, they don't even have music in the credits. Thanks. Why would I enjoy something, right? I might actually enjoy the credits, and you don't want that. Play your own music. Yeah. Fuck you, man. Play your own damn music. We're not here to entertain you. There you go. That's enough. Tron Legacy. Some Daft Punk. No. Alright, director's commentary. Insulting Daft Punk. What insult did I say? Never mind. I do like Daft Punk.
Hello everyone, I'm Dan Pinchbeck, I'm the creative director of the Chinese Room, and this is the Dear Esther developers commentary.
Hi, I'm Robert Briscoe, I'm the artist on Dear Esther.
And I'm Jessica Curry, and I was the composer on the game.
So what you're looking at today is a remake of a mod. Dear Esther started off in 2007 as a Half-Life 2 mod that did really, really well in the modding community, which was fantastic, and as a result of that attracted the attention of Rob, who worked as the primary developer on a Source remake of the game that was released in 2012. And this year is another remake where it's been updated for a cross-platform release, and we wanted to add in this developer's commentary just to give you a bit more of an insight into some of the ideas behind the game as it came together.
Well, I kind of want to listen to these. Maybe it becomes interesting, and at the same time, I kind of don't.
So you'll see around you in a lot of the environments, there's a lot of detail ingrained into everything. One of the things that I wanted to do with Dear Esther is bring the visuals up to the same kind of level of detail that Dan and Jess had put into the other areas of the game. So all of the history and the kind of hidden pieces of story that are intertwined with the VOs and the music and stuff, I kind of wanted to bring some of that into the environments. So if you look around you, you'll see that there's a lot of interesting bits and pieces, a piece of paper with someone's name on it, a photograph, an ultrasound. All of these little bits and pieces are kind of laid in to just kind of bring another aspect of the story into the game. And also, they're actually randomized, so every time you play, you'll see something different lying around. And this is just to build on this idea that everybody has a unique experience and a unique interpretation of the story.
Great. When you tell me a story, I absolutely love that you don't commit to it.
Part of the point about the whole game, I think, was this idea that rather than having a linear, straight-through version of the story, that we could have multiple story units for each place you were. And I was really
What is this? Huh.
interested in this idea of how you can open up that space that people can interpret. So I loved the idea that you could have two people that had played this game and then would have a conversation about it, and one of them would say, oh, what did you think about when this happened? And the other person would be like, well, that didn't happen for me. I had a completely different event happen or a completely different story happen. And it kind of feels very gamey in that way, that actually one of the things I love about
What game did these people
When
play?
I wrote the music for the mod of Dear Esther, there was absolutely no budget whatsoever for live players, so all the music was sampled. But one of the good things about that is it actually forced me to be quite creative about how I wrote the music. So with my background in...
everything about Esther for me is a dream. The landscape is not an island, it's the dream of an island. The music is like music that you wake up,
That's a
you've
good
heard it in
reaction.
sleep, but you're not conscious of hearing it. And the language in the story was supposed to be like that as well. It didn't matter
What
the
was
sense it made,
random
it was more about
here?
the kind of
Nothing
the shapes
happened.
it created, if that makes sense. So that the words would kind of were like this symbol on the beach, which is the golden ratio, it's one of the only things that's really left explicitly from the mod. In the original mod, there was an awful lot of more kind of symbols and kind of a much more kind of mystical, sort of magical elements.
These
to the
devs don't
island.
know
There was a lot
what
of very
they've
weird
actually
stuff in
made.
there.
Dude! What the hell? Like, how do you tell me that each person is getting different random events? I've had no events on this. No events at all. What is random about this? Do they mean some people encounter different voice thingies? Well, they're not random anyway. They're spread out, so yeah, maybe I'll miss some, but nothing has actually happened. Nothing happens.
And a lot of them came out of the commercial version because they felt like they were a little bit explicit. And instead, there's a lot more hidden kind of codes and symbols in there. There's still some stuff which...
Boom.
So something I
Shut
wanted
up.
to do as an artist was create some kind of reward for the player when they explore the island. There are some areas of the game where it's a little bit more quieter, there's no music or there's no voiceovers. So I kind of wanted to create a bit of an incentive for people to explore. And you'll find around the island that these kind of like random scattered items that usually slightly out of place from the
This is
environment
the
themselves.
golden rule? What?
But
It's no, it's
in
not.
another aspect, they actually bring a little bit of story to the island itself. Usually to the island or to the actual protagonists or you know the characters that surround it. So you'll find that around the island these little props and stuff. Just keep your eye out for it if you're exploring.
Yeah, I'll keep an eye out. Great reaction.
completely different story happen. And it kind of feels very gamey in that way, that actually the event happened or a completely different story happened. And it kind of feels very gamey in that way.
Throws reaction when David says something weird. Well, at least we got a good clip out of it. Seriously, what the actual fuck? The good news is we're gonna be done here kinda fast, so we can change to Everybody's Gone to the Rapture and see how the genre has evolved. Actually, let me rephrase that sound effect. The other shit game where nothing happens? You bet.
Part of the point about the whole game, I think,
Oh
was this
no,
idea
it
that
plays again?
rather than having a linear, straight-through version of the story, that we could have multiple story units for each place you were, and I was really interested in this idea of how you can open up that space that people can interpret. So I loved the idea that you could have two people that had played this game and then would have a conversation about it, and one of them would say, oh, what did you think about when this happened?
I'm
And the other
glad
person
it's
would be like,
this
well, that didn't happen.
conversation
We had
again.
a completely different event happen or a completely different story happen. And it kind of feels very gamey
Completely
in that way. That actually,
different
one of the things I love
story.
about writing for games is that you hand over so much control to the player that it becomes their story, and that's really, really important rather than trying to force them. So using randomised blocks of voiceover in the game and the kind of randomised prop details that Rob was talking about means that it gives it a really different feeling every time you go through. And that's kind of interesting for me, because I like the idea of going, well, not everyone has to have the same experience, and because it's interactive, you have the capacity to have very different experiences occupying the same space. So yeah, but balancing all that then becomes an absolute nightmare.
I think it's nice though, because everybody gets a personal experience. Like, I love reading the forums and seeing how people come and they sort of tell their story and what they interpreted of it, and then you see other people discussing what they thought of it. And to me, it's kind of nice because everybody takes something unique away from it.
Yeah, I bet. I didn't understand where I needed to go. Apparently, I hate to disappoint these developers, but both me and Throw took the same thing away from this. So, that's already two people.
So people have asked why the Dear Esther's set on a Hebridean island. What's really interesting about this is it's one of those times when your kind of aspirations as an artist and the practical realities kind of dovetail. We knew that we had to have some way of limiting the player from disappearing off the play space, and when we made the original, it was a mod, and because it was a Half-Life 2 mod, you kind of had Eastern European city, spaceship, or blasted, desolate landscape, where you had three options if you didn't want to start making any other assets. So it started off with these practical constraints. We don't want to set it on a spaceship, we don't want to set it in an Eastern European city, so it's got to be on this kind of like this desolate landscape. And we want to limit the player, so an island seems like...
One of the things you're always trying to do as a composer is create memorable themes. And a slight confession is that probably the most memorable theme, which is Remember in Dear Esther, wasn't actually created for the game. Rob's looking shocked. So it was actually from a piece of choral music that I'd written years before, based on a Christina Rossetti poem called Remember. And one of the things I was talking about earlier was how I didn't have any budget. So I had this piece of choral music, and I thought, hang on, this is absolutely perfect for Esther, but I don't want to use all of it. So the only bit that you actually get in the game is the first line.
White lines.
Yeah.
They actually did this. It was really cool. I found this historical document. They used to do this on Bora and the Hebrides. If their disease broke out,
Really?
they'd actually chip out and expose the chalk. So if you're on a boat and you were coming to the island, you'd know not to land because it was infectious, which is the coolest, most amazing... It's one of those things where you go, it's almost impossible as a writer to come up with something as cool as that. It just has to be something that was actually done. And it's so sad as well. And I love this bit and the fact that we can do it because it feels really real because it references a real thing. And I know there's something really special about that.
Sorry, it didn't actually feel very real.
It was one of those bits in the game that I thought, we've got to be able to represent this somehow. We have to be able to get these things in here.
Yeah, I mean, that's something that I wanted to bring through in the art of the game was the same kind of fidelity that you find in both Jessica's music and Dan's writing. In the same kind of way that you have all of these little details, these very close attentions to detail that kind of...
The most entertaining part of this game so far is trying to get to the next developer commentary by cutting off the previous. It's great. I'm enjoying the hell out of it.
really bring richness to the story, and something that was missing in the original mod version was just...
God damn it.
There's a scene in Donnie Darko where Drew Barrymore's playing his English teacher, and she talks about Celador as being the most beautiful word in the English language, and about how it's the sound of the words together. And Dear Esther actually comes from the introduction to From a Faith No More song, the Crab song on the first album, Introduce Yourself. And there's a point where, I think it's Chuck at that point, as the vocalist before Mike Patton, just says, Dear Esther. And it really lodged with me because the sound Dear Esther just has a really amazing sound to it. And I think when we started making it, and the idea of it being these series of letters to someone came through, it just came straight back out of going, that's just a really beautiful sounding combination of words.
What?
And I think
who thinks
that
this
really sums up the whole approach to the writing in Dear Esther of what's the most beautiful combination of words and images. I think the central question to the entire experience for most people that have played it or are talking about it is this idea of, is the island real? Is what's going on a literal event of a man walking across a Scottish island, or is it a dream that he's had? Does the island even exist? And one of the things that we try to do with the writing is to constantly lull the player into a position where they got an understanding, they made a decision about what they thought was going on, and then to undercut it. So you never actually were able to settle on any one interpretation. And that was the challenge I set myself when I wrote the original model.
This is the one thing that actually happened to me.
That not only lends itself to multiple interpretations, but there is no stable interpretation. Every single interpretation you have will always have questions, and you'll never be able to fully trust what you think you understand about the game. So it's challenging.
One of the things that's been most commented on with the audio and the music in Dear Esther is how sparse it is. And that was a really deliberate tactic. I wanted to leave room for the player to think and to dream and to wonder and to put their own interpretation into what was happening. And I think the problem with so much
Dear
modern
Esther,
media
that game
is
with
how
really
bombarded
sparse
we are
music.
constantly. It's the kind of MTV flash in your face, constant music.
Oh, man.
And Dan and I watch a lot of drama together, and that it really is constant.
Yeah, that's
music.
exactly how it was described to me.
You should feel really clearly.
What
It's
the
like being kind of
fuck?
beaten up by the music sometimes.
And when you read a lot of reviews of Dear Esther, a lot of people say they had this time to think and to interpret, and that was one of their favourite things.
Okay.
So there's a lot of places in the game where you see a lot of strange things, and this is very deliberate. One of the things we wanted to do is just kind of like not spoon feed the player every little piece of story. We kind of just, some things are literally just in there to just kind of let you think and let you decide on whatever you want to bring to the story yourself. So it's kind of like I approached it like an impressionist painting where you've got like this kind of very vague outline of things, but if you stare at it enough, you can kind of like fill in the spaces, and kind of the image comes together on its own. So a lot of these kind of strange pieces of geography and stuff, that's really kind of deliberate in some ways, just to kind of keep the player's mind open and kind of bring their own interpretations of the story through that.
You were possibly drunk during this commentary? I wish more games had commentary, but holy shit. Not commentary, I think. I think the making of is what I would love every game to have. But holy shit. You can smell how pretentious it is.
When I was originally thinking about how to write the music for the game, I suddenly realised that you don't see anybody in the game, and the most important character as such is the island itself. So one of the things that I did with the music was to write the island as if she or he were a character in its own right. And that's really important, I think, that you're going...
All right, let's talk about walking. Let's do it. We're gonna address the elephant in the room, the very, very slow-moving elephant in the room. So this might be a longer conversation because it kind of fits with that.
A longer conversation?
Esther was the first of the what are now called walking simulators, and it was really interesting that for us it didn't feel that weird to have a game that was slower than normal, where actually there was lots of time to just walk around and think and look at things. And it was amazing at the time how this was seen as completely revolutionary, and it's really interesting. It's amazing to see how many other games have kind of taken it on board. For me, it came from, I didn't see it as being odd to have a game where very little happened. The radio mast in Dear Esther was obviously there as a really important kind of design feature, as well as its place within the story. And that, I think, came from, it was really interesting, it being a Half-Life mod to begin with, and the Citadel in Half-Life 2, that it tells you how far you are through the game. You're always looking up to the skyline, am I closer to the Citadel, can I see it? And it lets you know how near you are to the end of the game. And it was really important because Esther's so open in a way, and because there isn't this, you're not using kind of shootouts or kind of gating it with combat encounters to kind of constantly keep you moving. That it was really, really important that you always had that focal point of going, I know exactly from the beginning of the game, virtually right from the start, you know where you're going, you know where the game's going to end up, and you know that sooner or later.
So something you'll notice as you look around the environment is,
I cut it off but didn't do the fart sound. I'm sorry, guys.
You know, from a distance you
I'm
see
a disappointment
the landscape.
too.
It's kind of a beautiful place in some ways.
I'll do it late.
But something I wanted to bring to the game was that there's this second layer beneath the surface, whereas if you look at things closely, you see that the actual island itself is very polluted. It's kind of very...
We cast and did all the voice direction for Esther ourselves for the mod, and it was basically Jess and I on a casting website just listening to people's show reels and finding what's the voice of this thing. And there was never any question about Nigel. I think we heard his show reel for the first time around. It's probably been listened to sort of 30 or 40 actors. And we started listening to his show reel and just both looked at each other and went, that's it, that's him. And it was amazing when Nigel came in, we had, I think, a day and a half to do the whole thing. And he just did that amazing thing that really, really great actors did. If he just walked in, got in front of the microphone, and more or less did the entire thing in one take. And we did hardly any retakes on anything. It just felt like his instinct for the character in the game was so strong that he just...
Yeah. A guy that writes letters.
This hole in the ground was
really hard to grasp.
A difficult thing in some ways. It's a bit of a challenging aspect of the game. Because, in some ways, it kind of like, I think for me, we wanted to have this kind of this pit here, and I wanted the player to be able to actually go as close as possible and like look over the edge and you know, kind of have this feeling of dread and stuff. But the other issue that we faced was like, what happens if the player just jumps into the hole? Like,
what happened?
One of the really important jobs of a composer, I think, is to provide the player or the listener with different emotional tones and states. And up until this point in the game, the music has been very sparse, very intimate, and very isolating in a way. But the island is also a beautiful and magnificent place, and what I wanted to do at this point for the first time in the game is to create something that was really epic. So we go from that shift in scale where it's very intimate and small to suddenly realising that this is an extraordinary and magical place to be, as well as a difficult and quite sad and melancholic place to be. So the string players were instructed at this point to play with much more vibrato. Up until this point they've played in a very sort of Scottish style actually, no vibrato, very plain playing. But this was a really beautiful cue to write actually, because it has that scale. You suddenly realise that the island is really big, and you know, you have this beautiful vista, and the music then shifts.
I like the music,
so the player can actually,
but
just
it's
for
not
a moment,
epic.
I think, enjoy being where they are.
Yeah, I think that's it.
Inside the bothy, there is a randomised chance that you can find an ultrasound picture on the table, and I think it's the one instance of randomization in the game that is like the pinnacle of it, because the idea that Esther was pregnant when she died changes everything emotionally about how you understand the story. And not to say that you don't care as much if you don't find it, but it just adds this other layer of just the ground falls away from it the first time I saw it, and the meaning of the crap. So as you leave the bothy and the seagull takes off, that's the one jump scare in the game, which is kind of interesting, because when we made it, we kind of had to, we kind of called it a ghost story, but there was no intention really. We kind of wanted this dreamy...
There was a jump scare? I missed it.
But when it came out, people started coming back and saying, this game is absolutely terrifying. I was really, really frightened. And that was really amazing. And I think it's because nothing happens. We're so trained in games to go, there's stimulus all the time, that if nothing happens, you're waiting for something to happen. And kind of, I tend to go back to again and again the whole sequence in Dead Space 2 when you go back to the Ishimura, and it's like the best bit of Dead Space 2.
Hey, don't spoil Dead Space 2 for me.
So one of the things that influenced
I was playing it tomorrow.
Was the tech limitations at the time.
I wasn't.
And also the kind of themes of the game. Like, tech-wise, we were never ever gonna kind of achieve photorealism, and I think that was a good thing. I mean, really, it made us sort of stretch out into other areas, and for me as an artist, it kind of made me think a little bit more creatively.
We should probably talk about some of the inspirations behind it. I'm on a strict you don't talk about Stalker kind of thing going on here. But when Rob and I started talking, I think one of the first things that we kind of discovered was how much we're both obsessed with Stalker. And I think that was one of the major things behind it in terms of when people talk about game inspirations. I mean, for me, there's a lot of FPS stuff in there, Doom, System Shock, but I think Stalker probably more than anything else. And Roadside Picnic, the Strugatsky novel that Stalker's based on, of the idea of this incredible space that you didn't understand, that's simultaneously beautiful and threatening. And I think sort of Tarkovsky's kind of films kind of play into that as well, particularly his version of Stalker, that you want to have.
One of the more interesting and challenging things to do in the visual side of things is to kind of create an emotional connection with the player. With the music, it's very strong, and the dialogue can kind of help you to feel what the character's feeling, but to kind of really create an atmosphere and to create emotion, it's very difficult. So I designed a few things very subtly within the environment to kind of plant imagery into your mind and kind of make you feel...
This is another of my favourite bits in the game, where you come along the edge of the sort of gully and you find hundreds of books, and it's one of the first times where most explicitly there's the suggestion that nothing you're seeing is real, because there's just no way that this can exist, and it's a really amazing, uncanny moment. But it works, I think, for me, because you just go...
I actually want to go check.
But it's lodged somewhere in my head, and I can't get rid of it, and I can't unsee this. And I think for me, like in terms of my influences from books, I mean, there's the obvious sort of stuff like with Burroughs, Cut Up and things like that going on. But it comes to the kind of books that I really love, that, like Roadside Picnic, or the other one by the Strugatskys as well, I absolutely love, is The Ugly Swans. That's just full of these images that you go, I don't understand, I literally have no idea what's going on here. But I can't shake it, it's just got its hooks in me. And I think more recently you've got books like Jeff Vandermeer's Annihilation does this so well, where nothing is understandable, but you feel the logic, but you can't understand the logic, but you feel like the logic's there.
Wow.
And that, I think, is a really powerful thing that games are so good at doing, of creating these things. And I think where a lot of game writing for me becomes kind of the wheels fall off it, is that they have these amazing ideas, and then suddenly there's this huge rush of going, right, we've developed this mythos and we've shown you all the tips of the iceberg, which are really interesting, but now we're just going to show you the whole iceberg. And actually that's never that satisfactory as a player, because it robs the mystery. And I think the best game writing is those kind of moments where you go, I feel like there's something just outside. There's
a saying in Portuguese which is the mountain gave birth to a rat. It's when you expect something amazing and suddenly it's the most underwhelming thing of all time. That was those books.
By the edge of my vision, or just on the edge of my hearing, but it's the confidence to go, that's it, that's all you get. And
one of the really important images in the game is the radio mast. And the soundscapes that I wrote for the game are really tied into this idea. So it's the concept of the tortured sounds that they're so broken down, they're so manipulated, and it really is supposed to represent the inner state of the protagonist at this point. It's that fractured understanding. So it kind of works on two levels, actually. We have the narrator who's trying to understand the journey that he's on, and we also have the audience's journey and their struggle for comprehension to understand what's going on in the game. So this distortion, this breaking down, this fragmented, kind of tortured sound really ties into the idea of the radio mast and that idea of communication, actually, that the game is trying to communicate something to you, the narrator's trying to tell you something, but it's so difficult to understand what that is.
The caves in the game are really interesting because it's a very tonal shift within the whole visual look of the game. It's kind of like this more organic, more surreal, dreamlike landscape compared to what you're used to before this point. It's we kind of used the visuals and this kind of unreal theme very subtly, but here it's kind of at the forefront. And it's, to me, it's kind of been designed as this kind of journey through the inner self, through the body.
This, for me, is probably the most pivotal music cue in the game, and it's the one that most people write to me about to say that they are absolutely obsessed with and they love. It's the only music cue that has singing, it has a female voice, and I think that's a really important shift.
I just want to say that I think you can divide caves in games into pre and post Dear Esther. I think that it's just a way of breaking away from reality into saying what you can do with these spaces that actually makes them this incredibly, much more vividly colourful and much more kind of interpretative and look for it. And it's really interesting that I look at caves now in games and I find myself going, that's a very Rob Briscoe cave. And I think that's an amazing thing to have achieved. So
That's some really humble brag. Keep walking forward and stick to the walls to walk towards the red tunnel for the commentary.
I think when you're designing a game, it's very easy to get very locked into what the system can do. And you're trying to deal with all the different variations of things that if a player does this, then this. And we have to deal with the consequence here. And our lead designer, Andrew, and I talk about this all the time, about you might have an idea, but then how does this radiate out throughout the entire system? And you get very caught in the idea of what the system has to be and how robust the system has to be and this kind of thing. And I think what's really important as a sort of a designer or as a creative is that understanding that actually the real game is happening in the player's head, and that the system can be whatever you want it to be, but if the game isn't running in the player's head as opposed to on the screen, then you're missing a trick. You're not letting the game be everything it could be. And I think the great thing about working with a game as simple as Esther in a way is what's really important to me is that Dear Esther started out as a Half-Life 2 mod, and if the Half-Life 2 modding community hadn't championed it and celebrated it and downloaded it a lot and talked about it and loved it, then it would never have been a game. So it's never really bothered me, the kind of is it a game conversation, because as far as I can see it, Dear Esther and like everything that's come after it has been inspired by it. This was championed by Half-Life 2 modder.
Also, I didn't know this started out as a Half-Life 2 mod, but I'm not surprised. Because boring leads to boring. That's pretty normal, right?
Dear Esther was my first foray into writing music for games. And I actually approached it very
Wow.
traditionally, so more as a film score than a traditional interactive game music score.
It's all connected. It all makes
what's
sense
really interesting
now.
for me is that the lack of interactivity in the music was never a problem for anybody that played the game. And that's a separate discussion, but there's a big schism between game music composers of how much the music should be following the player at all times in terms of interactive music. But one of the reasons I wanted to say something at this point was that
I don't know when the paper origami boats first came into things with Esther, really, but it felt like a really amazing metaphor of taking these letters and folding them into boats and then letting them leave the island, because you at this point in the game is kind of the realisation is there that this isn't going to end well, and that the narrator is never leaving the island, and the idea. In a lot of ways, the caves were the hardest area of the game to actually write, because we knew we didn't want to have much voiceover in there. I think because of the strength of the music, and this goes right back to the original mod, we wanted that to be the voice and for it to be a chance for Esther to speak rather than the narrator. And we also wanted to have this break, so when the narrator came out from the caves, you had a real definite sense of something happening, and that he had changed as a result of this journey. So I mean, it really felt wrong.
You like Half-Life 2, Melty?
Really difficult, because then you had like.
the sound here is a classic case of, again, what music I think does really well, which is you've had this soft, lyrical, beautiful, epic, dreamlike music, and then the moment you come out of the caves, you're into this really harsh soundscape, and the tonal shift is very, very brutal, I think, and deliberately so. You have very little music when you come out of the caves. You hear the wind. And it's a classic case of foreshadowing. So we know from this point that things are probably going to get bleaker.
You finished writing that hate mail to Esther? We're laughing at the developer commentary now.
Cave, right at the beginning of the caves where everything was written, and it moves to the back end of the level, and we have this long corridor that's full of these kind of it's the point of high madness, I think, in the game, isn't it?
Yeah, it's kind of just where you feel like you're losing the plot completely, both like visually and auditory, and you know, it's kind of like this really frenetic moment for me.
I think it's where you feel most that you're underneath.
Frenetic, not a word I would use in this game.
I loved the idea when we were, putting through it of what would it actually take to do this, like to actually paint all these symbols and what is going on. And it really is quite an explicit kind of thing of madness of going, you would have to be insane or very, very disturbed to actually do this, and what is the process that this person's trying to work through, what they trying to achieve by this. And I think it really strengthened it, making it a crawl through a tunnel as opposed to just a static location.
Yeah, I think it's the consistency and the coherence of the symbols is a lot more.
This is a bit more of a contentious one because we disagree on this one. I struggle with this, with the points in
pretentious
where you duck above and below the water, and you have to have that transition of audio. And I love the audio on both sides of the surface tension of the water, but I really struggle with you breaking water because it's such a hard edge to the sound, and I don't think there's any other way around that. And you need to have those moments where you do go underwater because it's so important. But it's one of the areas that's never sat very comfortably with me, because I feel like in a level which hasn't got a single edge in it, it's the one edge within it, and it breaks me.
And that's why I think it's so successful, because you've been lured into this completely hallucinatory, dreamlike world, and then all of a sudden, as a player, you're literally gasping for breath. You're coming up for air, and I think when we're talking about that metaphor of the body...
The motorway scene. The biggest new addition to between the mod and the commercial version. This didn't exist in the mod at all. It was a complete So the admission really is that I did play fast and loose with the geography of the M5. There isn't actually a welcome break service. It's just outside the junction of Stamford. But
As
we
has
also
been
know
pointed out to you.
players. I mean, what a thing if you make something that's based vaguely on somewhere in real life. In terms of a compliment, when you're getting emails from players going, there isn't a welcome break there, and people really trying to work out where is this, and whole threads about where on the M5 it is. That's just the most amazing feeling. But I think what I really love about, what I think works really, really well in Esther, and again it's something that I think is really carried forward to our other games, is that a lot of the time we're not dealing with kind of like big, glamorous, amazing, epic places. It's a sort of like a ratty little island in the Hebrides. It's someone who lived in Wolverhampton. It's just outside, a service station on a stretch of the M5. And I think that earths what's going on. Gives it a realness as well, particularly when you sort of put it against the surrealness of the caves. Actually, you're kind of going, this is really surreal and this is really, really dreamlike, but actually I'm talking about, a car accident just outside a little chef, and that playing off those two things against each other.
It's like making the ordinary extraordinary.
Absolutely, yeah.
How do I leave this area? Swim up. Fine.
This scene for me is like really, really iconic because it kind of brings this idea of the caves being an inward journey through the body together. It's really kind of like a symbol of rebirth, and it
Really?
actually brings together a lot of the visual goals that I wanted to achieve.
So I'm being shit out?
With a lot of the symbolism in the game. Like, I've talked a little bit about how the environment was kind of designed to provoke emotions, and kind of the impressionistic style gives you just enough information to make you think of things and feel things. But this this is probably like the antithesis of this.
I'm going through an anus.
And the whole feeling of rebirth here is quite strong. I know Jess.
Yeah, the music's really supporting that.
Yeah,
Because she sings always, always throughout, we've got always, always, and then she sings never, and a moment of absolute soaring. It's the climax of the music.
As you come out of the water and the music kind of swells, and you just kind of, it is like a moment of change has happened in some way, and
it's rebirth, isn't it? For me, it's his moment of clarity and acceptance and understanding of the reality of what's happened.
And you're literally moving towards the light at the end of the tunnel.
Yes.
You're actually doing that as you go through.
But the music, especially, I think before the music got layered in, that scene was nowhere near as kind of powerful for me. Like, that kind of just totally made it.
Alright, last chapter.
Dan and I had worked on lots of projects together, non-game projects, before we made Dear Esther. And I think the thing that links all of the projects that we've worked on together is that idea of hidden stories and layers of stories. And one of the things I wanted to do with the music was to embed hidden little hints and stories into it. So the music that you
it's probably the level which has changed most from the original mod. I think it's much bigger than the final level in the mod. And one of the major changes in there is in the original mod, the whole side of the cliff face was covered in painting and writing, and a lot of that moved inside to that corridor in the caves where it's really obsessionally painted on. And it was really, we spent so long on that because we were trying to get it looking right, because it's one of those really interesting examples where I loved the image and the idea that you've got this guy painting the entire side of a mountain with words and symbols and things. But it was really interesting when it went into the rebuild, it just never worked. And I think it was
I think one of the most fascinating things for me about planning this director's commentary has been that in previous years, when all the three of us have talked about Dear Esther, we've talked about the interpretation of the player. But actually going through this together, post having made it, we're still surprising each other.
Yeah.
And I think that's really, really interesting for me, because it shows that we left interpretation for each other, and that we trusted each other actually just to get on with it. And because we each brought our own special and unique contribution to the game, we didn't have to, in a way, talk it to death or say you have to justify every idea you have or talk it to death or explain it. That Rob's idea that the island is very tainted and corrupt, and my idea that Dan didn't know that the whole I'd been on holiday to Greece lots of times, and one of the things that I always really responded to emotionally was those shrines that you see on the road, and sometimes they're dedicated to saints and sometimes they're to markate where an accident has taken place. So you'll get photos of the deceased person and flowers and candles.
One of the really nice
We
things
have that
about
here
the
too.
move from mod to the commercial version is that we had a couple of years worth of the community talking about the game before we went back into it again. And one of the things that I read on a forum was that someone had constructed this amazing version of the story where they'd decided that the narrator was Paul. And I hadn't thought of that. It was never part of the original writing. And I thought, that's so amazing that as a writer, your audience can find something in what you're doing that you hadn't thought of. So it was really important when we went back in to record the additional set of voiceovers. I thought, I absolutely want to do this. I want to take this idea that's come out of the fans and to run with this and to add an entire new sort of stream of story in there. So we added in
What's fascinating to me, Dan, is that you're an atheist, but each of the three games that we've made are so strongly about religion, either the language or taking allegories and stories.
What's the other one?
Why are you so drawn to it?
I think I'm really interested in people and the stories that make up people. And I think there is like in the Bible, like most kind of religious texts, it's not about what it is, it's about what is behind what it is, and that's what you're really getting towards, the idea of the sort of the parable or the metaphor. And it really felt like, particularly with Paul on the road to Damascus, is a story that many people know and we can understand, and it's about redemption and consequence and guilt. And is Dear Esther a depressing game or a hopeful game?
For me, it's kind of like a mix of both, really. I think, like, my interpretation is kind of like, I always feel like kind of depressed when I think about the kind of turmoil that this guy's been going through for God knows how long, and the kind of...
So Dear Esther is the first walking simulator. How do you feel about Walking Simulator?
You know what, I think I took offence to it when it first became a thing, but you know, I think actually I don't mind it so much now. I think the fact that we have kind of taken ownership over it, like that genre has been kind of made our own by not just our game, but like a bunch of different games have kind of embraced it. I don't know, what do you guys think?
I'm still really confused.
Wait, what? This one is the most missable director's commentary. Keep walking forward until you see the next commentary in front of you. Do not go for it just yet. He said turn around and go up the cliff in front of you to the left. You will find a minecart on the hill, and the
About
commentary is
the
in front
need
of
to
you.
categorise in games probably more than any other creative
Ah.
industry, and I think it shows that games have a long way to come in terms of how we describe an experience. So I do agree with Rob that it's really positive that we reclaimed Walking Simulator, but I still find it reductive, possibly, as a term. What about you, Dan?
I think for me, it's people want to know what they're buying and what they're getting into, and I think it's so people understand what a walking simulator is now in a way that if it was like first-person adventure or slow-moving, not very interactive, story-driven games, they're all sort of really very fluffy. But I think if you the last level ended up being quite a lot bigger than the original mod, and it's also the one where actually the movement around it is in a way the most artificial. There's the big zigzagging cliff paths that basically it's like a series of straight lines from point to point. There isn't a lot of movement, and one of the things that was really difficult to do with that was to not make it feel too much like a corridor and to give it that sort of sense of space and that you were actually exploring somewhere quite natural. I think, Rob, there was stuff which you put in there, like little new beat moments, like the ruins at the edge of the cliff. Yeah. There's a bit of an illusion of simplicity with games like Dear Esther that people kind of assume because there's not a lot of mechanics and there's not much going on in that sense, that they're easy to make. And I think actually it's kind of the opposite in a way, that because they're so simple, everything is exposed and everything has to be exceptionally good for it to work, because you're carrying a player's experience on a fairly sparse, minimal kind of framework, and that really means that every aspect.
One of the things that I think was added more frequently in the final version of Dear Esther was the inclusion of a number of ghosts in the game. These are not like ghosts that you'd see in a normal horror game. They're just very loose silhouettes that you'll see around the island, usually like quite a distance off, or just kind of somewhere that you'd barely see it out the corner of your eye. I think this is a good example of where it's kind of really in your face, and these are kind of just something that we put in to kind of not just bring some unreal elements to the island, but something supernatural as well, something that's kind of beyond this world, something kind of unsettling, and yeah, we've a lot of effort's been put in to make these things very subtle. I didn't really want them to be like, I didn't want it to be a ghost story, so to speak, but I just kind of wanted to bring
The Overlook, the point about this to me is that it's probably the voiceover in the game that kind of sums up the whole story and the experience. It's almost like a recap of everything that's gone before you start the final climb, and you know it's that pause before you're going to start the final climb and before the game's kind of builds to a climax. But you can also see the whole level, and it's like the idea that you are standing looking down on your own journey, a bit like the idea of your life flashing before your eyes, or sort of like seeing your body but having an out-of-body experience at the moment of death. And it was really designed to try and get that feeling as the player that you stop and you take stock of everything, and there's a bit of a sense of there's no going back. You take a breath and now it finishes, and I really wanted to kind of achieve that sort of sense, and I think we did. I think it really came together here, that you got that sense of going, right, now this ends.
So here it kind of the environment becomes a little bit more surreal again. We kind of play with the colours a little bit, bring up the saturation. It's kind of a little bit of a return to some of the more cave-like aesthetics in terms of colours and stuff like that. And it's kind of there to kind of signpost another significant moment in the game, or something that's leading up to the significant moment. It goes back to this kind of idea of having these emotional signposts in the visuals of the game, without it being overly obvious, and some of that.
The music that's playing here is a repeat of another cue, and originally we hear it played on the piano, and the string quartet take on the piece here. And it's one of those really nice instances where we were in the studio and I had this idea of how it was going to sound, and I thought it was going to be quite full and rich and, yeah, full-bodied. And then one of the string players said to me, "This is wrong."
It was possible that this last section of the game could have felt quite laborious and forced because it's 2 long zigzagging paths that just go up, and there was a real importance to getting it right, and quite a lot of work went into it. I think at this point for me, you probably as a player understand that the narrator's going to die at the end, and that this is it. And that unlike where the rest of the island, there's this sense of this could just keep going on forever and ever and ever. And
with the climb being quite a poignant moment of the game overall and of the story, it was quite a difficult task to try and make that climb still interesting and not too laborious, because it's kind of this zigzag up there with nothing really. There's no real environment. You just kind of have the sea on one side and the cliff face on the other. So there was quite a lot of work that went into kind of building up this feeling of tension as you're rising and kind of making this moment as poignant as possible while still making it interesting. So a lot of effort was put into building up this weather, building up the winds and the swaying of the grass and kind of the volume of the soundscapes and everything mixing together with the music, and just kind of visually really trying to make this a tense moment. And I think it's hopefully been pulled off all right. And you'll notice when you get to the top, this kind of tension dies, and that's very purposeful. You'll see no more wind. It's just kind of like a symbolic thing where you're coming to the last moment, the point of no return, and that's been very deliberately designed that way.
Alright, that's the developer commentary, which should be 100% of the trophies of the game. Obviously, no platinum, because only real games have platinum trophies, right?
We had a lot of debates, didn't we, about the ending of the game and whether the player should retain control or whether it was okay to go to a cutscene at this point. I personally don't mind it. I actually actively like it because I think it works really well as a metaphor for loss of control at that point. Dan, I know you're not as keen.
Yeah, I'm not. I would have loved the player not to have had control taken away from them, but to me it was a balance between 2 evils. The evil of having a cutscene and the evil of the player accidentally falling off the ladder halfway up and destroying the ending.
Yeah, I agree. I think we tried a few different things, and the tech at the time just wasn't, the ladder tech at the time just wasn't there. So, and the other thing for me was pacing. It was making sure all the music, the voiceovers, the timings and everything were perfect for that final jump off point, and just letting the player.
That's the most stupid thing I've ever heard. No, it's not. Just make it not be. Just make the player not be able to climb back down. Clearly, there's not a jump button, so what the hell? That's a Half-Life 2 problem. There wouldn't be a problem in any other thing. Ugh.
Just kind of noodle around going up a ladder for what may have been like 7 minutes because it's a tall tower. Was kind of an impossible task.
One of the things that I enjoyed the most on working on Dear Esther was Rob's beautiful visuals were so inspiring, but Dan's words are always so amazing to write to. I think that's where we start as a partnership. And the music at the end was so easy to write because that last voiceover is the pinnacle of the writing to me, as it should be, because it's the last VO, so you would have failed if it wasn't good. But it is just so beautiful and moving. And for me, talking about whether it's a hopeful ending, the music is really hopeful at this point. And it signifies to me transformation, freedom, escape, acceptance. Yeah, and it was just a beautiful cue to write, actually.
I don't know, I can't remember quite where it came from in the mod, but the moment when we went, or we could put the bird in there, and you could see the bird's shadow, and actually it turned from being kind of like a straightforward literal suicide into a metaphorical, or to my mind, kind of like, I always really believed the narrator did turn into a bird just before they hit the ground, and that was really important. I think it's probably the strongest ending in any of our games so far. But yeah, I'm very proud of the way everything came together in that last section.
Yeah, I think it's the bird thing is particularly interesting because I think it was in the original mod, but the timings and everything were just all off, and you never really saw the seagull. Yeah, at least the shadow as well. It was all kind of like a little bit broken. And I remember when we went back in, I made a real effort to try and get that shadow just out of the center of the view, so you kind of have this hint of something happening, and I think you can hear the sound of a seagull flapping its wings. It's like very subtle, but like I say, I kind of really like the way that came together. It kind of it's very like say it's kind of like a release, but at the same time there's still this kind of ambiguity there that's kind of beautiful.
And I'm really proud that I got the monitor in at the end for an ending of, it goes into the hospital monitor, signifying the flat line. And I think it's one of those moments where you never want to be so clever that people notice it and it takes them out of the moment, but it just flows in through the music, and it just feels like everything comes together at that last point. That last VO, Rob's amazing visuals and the music, and it feels like a really, really strong and beautiful ending.
And then in the last second, Nigel Carrington's delivery of just those two words have come back, where he just pitch perfect.
Yeah. So that's the end of the director's commentary. We'd just like to say a big thank you to everyone for listening. We hope you've uncovered some secrets and some facts that you didn't know about the game before.
We'd also like to say a huge thank you for buying the game, and for all our fans who've been behind us and been behind the game and have kept it alive all these years. It's a real privilege that it's still out there, still such a title that people love so much.
Yeah, and we're really looking forward to the future and what we can create coming up next. Thanks for listening.
Cheers.
Bye.
Well, that was something. Wow. The trophies and everybody's gone to the rapture are going to be not fun. Gentlemen, I present to you the most delusional developers to ever develop. Well, at least they didn't leak their game online, right? Alright, what is the other game they've done? Dear Esther, everybody's gone to the rapture? Are they counting Dear Esther and Dear Esther Landmark Edition as two different games? I guess. I mean, even you can't say it's that bad, Throw. Come on. In order to obtain this trophy, you need to interact with almost everything in the game. You'll need to activate every telephone, TV, computer, automatic story scene, triggered story scene radio, and story arc conclusion scene. Man.
Everybody's gone to the Rapture. This will earn you the completionist trophy. Now you have to do it in a single playthrough, and this playthrough is everything I did, everything in this video. It's 25 minutes long, so I'm gonna kind of go through this pretty quick. I hope you guys have a little knowledge of the land. I really don't have the time to hold your hand going from one location to the next. Otherwise, this would be an hour-long video. Now, things that aren't included in this 100% story are things like the maps, the graffiti chads, and the bird books. Those aren't required. But what is required are the radios, as well as the phones, ringing phones and non-ringing phones. And then, of course, the story stuff, the stuff that you have to use your motion controller for, and things that you have to initiate by just by proximity, just getting close to it. So.
Okay. Can't wait. Alright, I'm going to take a break. And then we're gonna be slightly less bored with everybody's going to the Rapture. It was a great clip, Belty. It's a shame you don't understand what I'm reacting to. Well, yeah, break time. I'll be back with another game. Let me just confirm. We got that 100%. We did. Cool. Okay, I'll be right back.